we're developing the platform on which new initiatives that could be potentially beneficial to countries like Jamaica will be developed.
Thank you. Mike Blanchfield from Canadian Press. Mike, you have the floor.
I can't unmute. I'm trying to unmute and I appear to be stuck. Can I get my colleague Stephanie to ask the question, please?
We can hear you. Go ahead. We can hear you.
Oh, great. Okay. Okay. Given that this is a question I'd like answered in both official languages, of course, I have a question for the Prime Minister and a follow-up for the Secretary General. Given that the WHO is satisfied that rapid COVID-19 tests are good enough to send millions of them to developing countries and several to our international peers, and they've been approved domestically there, why exactly is Canada still unsatisfied that they're okay to use, that they're not okay to use here?
Not satisfied. Prime Minister Trudeau.
Obviously, Canadian scientists are working very, very hard to approve all sorts of different rapid tests. We will continue to be informed by the approvals and processes and data gathered in other countries, but those scientists will, and medical experts will make the determinations that are best for Canadians. On the political side, as much as we'd love to see those tests as quickly as possible, we're not going to tell our scientists how to do their job and do that work. But we are, however, ensuring that as soon as those approvals happen, we are ready to deliver these tests across the country. We're working already on procurement mechanisms because we know that rapid testing is part of the solution on how we get through this. Nous savons que c'est important que nos scientifiques et nos experts puissent analyser comme il faut les différents processus et évidemment vont être informés par les études des différentes méthodes de dépistage qui sont faites à travers le monde, mais ils vont prendre les décisions qui sont bonnes pour le Canada avec les moyens que nous avons. Bien sûr, on veut voir ces tests-là approuvés le plus rapidement possible, mais ce ne serait pas correct que des politiciens mettent de la pression pour arriver à une décision scientifique plus rapidement. On a besoin de respecter le travail de nos experts et de nos scientifiques. Mais en même temps, nous sommes en train de faire les arrangements nécessaires pour que dès que ces tests de dépistage soient approuvés au Canada, on puisse les distribuer à travers le Canada où ils sont, si nécessaires, parce que c'est ce à quoi les Canadiens s'attendent et c'est ce dont on a besoin.
Mike, you're still muted. So if you could unmute Mike Blanchfield, please. Thank you. Go ahead. Start again, please.
Okay. Apologies. Quick follow-up for the Secretary General and the Prime Minister of Canada. Are you, and in both official languages, please, a reminder, are you concerned about a contested election result in the United States? And what are you doing to prepare for the potential international consequences of such a situation?
Les Nations Unies n'interfèrent pas dans les développements électoraux de n'importe quel pays dans le monde. Nous respectons toujours le résultat des élections et nous travaillons avec les gouvernements qui sont élus.
Prime Minister.
As the Secretary General has said, Canada is, of course, fully respectful of the processes underway in the United States. We will not be interfering or engaging in any way in their electoral processes, and that includes commenting on their electoral processes. We will, of course, continue to prepare for any outcomes and be there to stand up for Canadians as we always have through these past years and before that. The role of the Canadian government is to be there to defend Canadian interests while working with elected leaders around the world, and we will continue to do that. Nous, évidemment, regardons ce qui se passe aux États-Unis, mais nous n'allons pas commenter sur les processus. Notre responsabilité en tant que gouvernement canadien, c'est de se préparer à toutes sortes d'éventualités et d'être là pour défendre les intérêts des Canadiens. Et c'est ce que nous allons faire en travaillant avec quiconque sera élu à travers le monde.
Merci. Thank you very much. We'll now go to a Jamaican journalist, Siobhan Campbell. Siobhan, you have the floor. Siobhan Campbell, if you could try to unmute. All right, we will go back to you.
Good afternoon.
Yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Siobhan Campbell. This is for the Prime Minister of Jamaica. As you pointed out, the need for an equitable distribution of a vaccine to all developing countries. Are any deals currently in place to allow this to be possible once one is available?
Well, as I'd mentioned before, Jamaica subscribes to the COVAX initiative under the WHO and PAHO. And I believe that that initiative will be significant in ensuring that countries like Jamaica can get equitable access to the vaccine when a safe, tried, tested, proven vaccine is available.
Thank you. We'll go to Pamela Falk from CBS News and then NHK. Pamela?
Yes, on that last point, thank you very much, Secretary General and Prime Ministers. It's Pamela Falk from CBS News. My question is about the COVAX program, the coronavirus vaccine sharing and accelerating program. You've all said it should be available to all, and yet the United States has not been part of it, although some members of the private sector in the United States are. Is there anything you have done as outreach to the United States to come back into the COVAX program? And how optimistic are you that the money will come in for it and distribution of a vaccine or many vaccines, once they're available, will be distributed fairly? Thank you.
I think we must distinguish two dimensions. One is the COVAX in itself. The COVAX is a coalition of a large number of states with several international organizations, including those that are experts in vaccines. And they are working with private companies in the development, then in the production, and then in the distribution of vaccines. And that is for that project that I have been appealing for $31 billion additional dollars in relation to the $4 billion that are already in place. On top of that, there are several countries with their own initiatives to provide vaccines to their own citizens, and also countries that have announced that they would have programs not only for their own citizens, but that they would share their vaccines with the developing countries. It was the case of India, it is the case of China, and of other countries that have announced, Japan, that have announced that. So we have nothing against the fact that the government provides vaccines to its own people. What is necessary is that all governments also cooperate through the COVAX or in coordination with the COVAX in all initiatives that are necessary to guarantee that everybody, everywhere, has access to an affordable vaccine. Because if this will not be the case, even the vaccination programs in developed countries will be ineffective, because we will only get free of the virus if we'll get free of the virus everywhere.
Thank you. Prime Minister Trudeau?
Thank you. Prime Minister Trudeau, yeah.
Yes, we understand how important it is to eradicate the virus at home and everywhere at the same time. That's why Canada's moved forward in a number of different ways to ensure that wherever and whenever a virus is developed, we make sure we're maximizing our chances to be able to obtain it. So a big chunk of that is through contributing close to $500 million to the COVAX facility, which works as in we are securing doses for Canada at the same time that we're paying for, and at the same time as we will be paying for an equal number of doses to be distributed to the developing world. That's the large functioning of it that allows for countries to both secure domestic capacity at a reasonable price, but also ensure that our initiative gets vaccines out to other countries as well who don't have the capacity to pay. At the same time, Canada has secured bilateral deals with many pharmaceutical companies and potential vaccines to double up on our chances to be able to access vaccines once one becomes available. But we know that participating internationally in ensuring vaccines for the developing world is incredibly important as we move forward, and which is why we're full-fledged supporters of the COVAX facility.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sato from NHK, Japanese television, in the room. Mr. Sato.
Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary General. Thank you, Stefan. My question is similar to that of Pamela, but let me add a question about the vaccine cooperation. So, although that the U.S. and China's leader expressed that their cooperative attitude in the general debate in terms of the vaccine cooperation, but still China and the U.S. has, in many cases, in some conflict. So what is, if you have a message to the China and the U.S. leaders, what is your message to leaders in terms of the to fulfill the fair distribution of vaccine to the world?
I think it is very clear that there are many differences and many things that separate these two countries. But I believe that global public health is essential for everybody. And so my appeal to the leaders of these two countries, as to all other leaders in the world, is to join efforts, and namely to join efforts in order to make sure that we'll have treatments, testing, and vaccines available for everybody, everywhere, to the benefit of not only the developing world, but also of the developed world. If the global south will not be able to eradicate the virus will unfortunately go back to the global north, and we need to avoid it at all costs.
Thank you. Do any of the prime ministers wish to add something? Okay. We'll go to Catherine Levesque from Le Devoir, I believe. Catherine? Hold on, you're still muted. Could we unmute Catherine Levesque, please? There we go. Go ahead. Okay, you're still muted. While we get that sorted, let's go to Ibtisam Azem. Ibtisam, you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Prime Ministers and the Secretary General. My question is, I want to go back to the issue of financing. And as you know, there is a drain of resources. There's different reports, including the FACTI panel report, about at least 500 to 600 billion corporate tax revenues a year that get lost. Also, trillions of private wealth in hidden havens, countries. So my question to you is: I'm aware that there is an international mechanism to try to tackle these problems, but it seems to be that this mechanism is not working. So is there, given the situation we are going through and the need for the money and resources, is there any work now or exact plans that you are working at to try to recover some of these monies to put it also in development and supporting the projects that in development and supporting the vaccine and all other money that is needed in place? Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, one of the things that has been in the center of our discussions in the group is exactly everything related to illicit financial flows, to money laundering, to tax evasion. And that, of course, has also to do with the need to fight corruption and to have good governance. And this is one area of concern that we have. The other area of concern that we have is that our tax systems in the world are, of course, on a country basis, and that creates a number of gaps that allow many global corporations to pay a very limited amount of taxes. And what we have been saying is that we need to organize things and to increase international cooperation in order to make sure that there is a fair taxation for people and corporations, and namely that tax havens and other instruments are conveniently disciplined and, if possible, cancelled. So there is an area that is essential, which is to try to have a more fair way of taxing corporate income and personal income in the world. And finally, of course, there is always an appeal for those that have been benefiting from this situation to contribute from a philanthropic point of view to all the causes that we have been mentioning. But I would say that it is better to bet on justice than to bet on philanthropy.
Thank you, sir. The last question will go to Hélène Buzzetti from The Devoir. Hélène Buzzetti.
Oui, bonjour. Ma question est pour M. Trudeau. Il y a des millions de Québécois qui vivront bientôt en zone rouge. Il sera désormais interdit de recevoir de la famille ou des amis chez eux. Alors, puisque vous êtes un député québécois, vous, comment vous expliquez-vous que ce soit encore le Québec qui soit l'épicentre de la crise au Canada? Et plus spécifiquement, pensez-vous qu'il faudrait permettre aux policiers d'aller chez les gens afin de s'assurer qu'ils appliquent les consignes sanitaires, puisque c'est là que semble être le problème?
Je soulignerai qu'on est en train de voir une croissance des cas à travers le pays. Effectivement, c'est pire un peu dans nos grandes villes, qu'on parle de Toronto, de Calgary, on a vu des éclosions, mais certainement à Montréal et à Québec, c'est une grande préoccupation, certainement pour moi en tant que député montréalais. J'ai parlé au premier ministre Legault hier soir pour souligner que nous sommes là en tant que gouvernement fédéral pour appuyer ces commerces, appuyer ces citoyens dans une situation extrêmement difficile. Nous savons que cette deuxième vague pourrait être dévastatrice pour bien des familles, bien des entreprises. C'est pour ça que nous devons suivre les instructions des autorités de santé publique. Par rapport aux actions de la police, ça c'est une question pour le premier ministre Legault de gérer les règles qu'il est en train de mettre en place. En tant que gouvernement fédéral, nous allons être là pour appuyer les citoyens.
Okay.
Et en question, donc j'en comprends que vous n'avez pas de position précise sur la police, mais j'aimerais aussi revenir sur les entreprises, les PME. Beaucoup d'entre elles vont fermer leurs portes dans les prochains jours. La première vague avait déjà été difficile. La deuxième risque de signer l'arrêt de mort pour plusieurs d'entre elles. Avez-vous d'autres munitions dans votre arsenal d'aide? Et si oui, quelles sont-elles?
Comme on l'a souligné dans le discours du trône, on est prêt à répondre directement dans des situations où, effectivement, il doit y avoir des fermetures régionales ou locales. Nous avons plusieurs outils, dont la subvention salariale, dont le compte d'urgence pour les petites entreprises, dont des appuis directs aux entreprises. Et nous sommes en train actuellement de regarder la meilleure façon d'aider les entreprises qui voient cette deuxième fermeture avec énormément d'anxiété. Comme j'ai dit depuis le début, nous allons être là pour aider les Canadiens à passer à travers cette crise et c'est exactement ce que nous allons faire.
Monsieur le Premier ministre, merci beaucoup. Prime Minister Holness, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for joining us online. Secretary General, thank you. And we hope to see all of you very soon. Thank you and stay safe.
All the best. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Very well.